All right, how's everybody doing?
We good, Pastor. How you?
Right,
Doing
real.
good. Doing good. Doing good. It's good to have you on. Good to have you on. I want to welcome everybody to our monthly financial wellness ministry conversation. And let me switch something up real quick. I want to welcome everybody to our monthly financial wellness ministry conversation. I want to thank you so much for joining us. And we need to do some, those that are watching on social media, if you all can do me a favor and go ahead and share the post, I would be extremely appreciative. Again, those that are watching via social media, if you can do me a favor and share the post, I would be extremely appreciative. I need to do something real quick and then we'll be ready to go. There we go. That's exactly what I'm looking for right there. All right. And so I'm going to place everything in the hands of our virtual, our financial wellness ministry coordinator, Kiara Hall. We're going to place everything in Kiara's hand, and I'm looking forward to some learning and some great discussion this evening. Those that are watching on social media, you can feel free to type in the chat, and or you can feel free to click the link that's at the pinned to the top of the chat bar on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter, and actually join us on this platform so you can participate in the verbal conversation. Kiara, it's all yours.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Financial Wellness Ministry virtual conversation. You all hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So I'm really excited. This is going to be the last Financial Wellness Ministry meeting of 2022. And we are going to end 2022 with a bang. This is going to be an amazing meeting. And our subject for today is going to be Think and Grow Rich, a Black Choice. So there is a popular book by the name of Think and Grow Rich. It's sold over 16 million copies. But then there is a gentleman by the name of Dennis Kimbrough, who is a doctor. And he started studying not just successful people, but specifically Black people who became very wealthy and successful, and figure out, okay, what is the difference? What is success to you? What did you do? What made you stand out and become successful? And so that is how Think and Grow Rich, a Black Choice came out. I'm not going to dig too much into my introduction of it. I'm just going to play a video. And then as we're, I just want you to pay attention, take notes, and then we'll be able to have a good discussion on the video. I'm not going to play the whole video because I'm going to pause it so we can have discussion and chat, but then I'll make sure to share the link. That way, if anybody wants to go back and watch the full video, you'll be welcome to do it. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and I'm super excited for y'all to see this. There's actually a book called Think and Grow Rich, a Black Choice, but this video is going to be like an introduction and summarizing some key points from the book. So let's see, let me go ahead and hit share, and I'm going to specifically share YouTube, share my sound, and share. All right, and I'm going to make it big. And this is Dr. Dennis Kimbrough, and let me know if you all can hear this well.
Whoever wants to be great, stand up right now. Whoever wants to be great. Now repeat after me. Repeat after me if you want to be great and successful.
It's real loud.
You must walk hand in hand. Side by side. With great and successful people.
Hand in hand.
All right, have a seat.
Side by side.
All I did about 7 years of my life was try to find out what makes the great great. That's all I ever did. When I left Northwestern University in 1984 with a PhD in hand, I did not want to teach. I did not want to go into corporate America. I didn't want to go to the foreign service like many of my colleagues. I guess sort of subconsciously I wanted to find out the keys to success. So I carved out a list initially of about 40 people that I was going to meet and interview, and notice at point blank range trying to find the keys to success. That list of 40 swelled to almost 100. And all I wanted to do was find out what makes the great great. And I'm just here to tell you some of the things. When I asked Don King what makes the great great, Don King says if you overfill your place, People will come see you. If you set yourself on fire, the world will come see you burn. What makes the great great? When I interviewed Mae Jemison, the first black woman in space, I said, Dr. Jemison, what is success? She said, success is lifestyle. Life is God's gift to you. Style is what you do with it. What makes the great great? When I interviewed Ben Carson, arguably black America's #1 neurosurgeon, Dr. Carson said to me, he said, think big, think stretch, think global, think quantum leaps. By all means, think. And that is the key. What makes the great great? Have you found it? Percy Sutton of Inner City Broadcasting said to me, he said, young man, if you have but one wish, let it be for a dream. What makes the great great? Henry Parks of Park Sausage said to me, he said, young man, in one hand I have a dream, in the other hand I have an obstacle. Which one grabs your attention? What makes the great great? The few moments that I had with Reverend Ike, he said to me, he says, I know the key to greatness. I said, Reverend Ike, what is it? He said, mind your own business. I said, Reverend Ike, you want to run that by me again? I said, yeah. He said, mind your own business. Bob Johnson of BET said to me, I said, Mr. Johnson, what is success? What is greatness? He said, life is a grindstone. Whether it grinds you down or polishes you up depends on what you are made of. I asked Louis Farrakhan, I said, Minister Farrakhan, what is wealth? He said, poor is the man who all he has is money. What makes the great great? And then I came full circle to Jesse Jackson. Jesse Jackson says, you may not be responsible for getting knocked down, but you're certainly responsible for getting back up. What makes the great great? Well, in short, it's a sense of destiny, as Peter Daniels say. It is a sense of destiny. And anybody can have a sense of destiny by following 5 keys. Number 1, focus on that which you desire most. Number 2, emulate somebody that you can admire. Number 3, develop a gratitude attitude. Give thanks for the things that you do have. Don't worry about the things that you don't. Number 4, recognize that strength grows out of struggle. And last but not least, dedicate yourself to lifelong learning. Readers are leaders. The average black male in American society spends more than $500 on the outside of his head. Haircuts, shaves, dental work, but spends less than $50 a year on the inside of his head. And I applaud everyone here today. Readers are leaders. All you are is a mental being. All causation is mental. Everything happens to you twice in life. First the inner, then the outer. First the thought, then the thing. First the mental, and then the physical. And to the extent that you control what goes on the inside of your life, you'll control what goes on the outside of your life. Readers are leaders. You can be, have, or do anything you want in this society. And I tell people, do not become a know-it-all. Don't have preconceived notions. It's like the story of 3 men who are about to be executioned. And each one of them were granted one last word to say before they're about to be guillotined to death. The first one to approach the chopping block is a doctor. The doctor puts his neck on the chopping block, and the executioner says, Doctor, do you have any last words? And the doctor says, yes. Physician, heal thyself. Right then the guillotine blade comes down and stops 2 inches from the doctor's neck. Everybody out in the audience says, surely this is a sign from above. This man is innocent. Let him go free. The next one to approach the chopping block was a priest. And the executioner says to the priest, he says, Father, do you have any last words? And the priest says, yes. Keep the faith. Right then the guillotine blade came down and stopped 1 inch from the priest's neck. Everybody out in the crowd says, surely this man is innocent. Let him go free. The last person to approach the chopping block was a know-it-all. And the executioner says, sir, do you have any last words? And the know-it-all says, yes. If you tighten the 2 bolts on the left, the guillotine will work as planned. Don't be a know-it-all. The information is there. The material is there. Focus on your God-given talents. Use this billion-dollar brain, this mind that you have, and use it for your own personal good. You see, the Bible says the first shall be last and the last shall be first. We in the black community have been trained to believe. You go to any pastor and say, Pastor, what does that mean? The first shall be last and the last shall be first. Well, the pastor will say, well, that's living proof that black America will one day be first. All these years we've been last, but one day, if you read it right here in the Bible, we shall be first. Well, it doesn't mean that. The first shall be last and the last shall be first doesn't mean that at all. You see, we live in a consciousness that says, I will not believe it till I see it. In other words, when you show me the physical, then I'll believe it. The Bible says put that last. See, the physical, which is first, will now become last. And the mental, which is last, will now become first. You see with your mind's eye. You get a dream, a vision, something that you want to do, and you see with your mind's eye because your physical eye will lie to you. I interviewed scores of achievers. You name it. I spent a day with Al Sharpton. I spent a day with Don King, Susan Taylor of Essence Magazine, Mae Jemison, Percy Sutton, you name it, and I had the pleasure to talk to that individual, and I found 4 common chords no matter who I interviewed. Number 1, they dreamed big dreams. They had a dream, a plan, a vision, something they wanted to accomplish so desperately with their life. Number 2, they were inner-directed versus outer-directed. In other words, they didn't live life at the circumference, they lived life at the center. And they weren't so quick to believe well-meaning friends or family who said, you can't do this or you can't do that. See, that's what Robert Frost meant in his poem, 2 roads diverge in the wood, and I took the one less traveled by. You are unique. You cannot succeed being like everybody else. You must take that lonely road. And that's why I have in my book that the opposite of success is not failure. The opposite of success is conformity. So many times we conform to the wishes, the norms, and the mores of others. Number 3, these individuals flat out refuse to be average. They committed themselves to personal excellence. Now again, you can be, have, or do what you want in this society, but I tell people, don't be average. See, average is worst of the best, it's best of the worst. It's top of the bottom, bottom of the top. Society remembers the achiever. Society will even remember the man or woman who fell short of the mark, but nobody remembers the man or woman who is average. When you die, they'll put on your tombstone, here lies somebody that's just average. And last but not least, these individuals flat out refuse to fail. I'm not saying that they didn't fail. Many times they actually failed their way to success, but no one was going to stop them. And again, going back to my book, that's why I say that success is a statistical event. That's all it is. When you encounter your setbacks, when you encounter your adversities or that thing that sets you back, do not personalize your failure. And failure is never failure until it is accepted as such. And one way that you can overcome any failure, one way that you can ensure that you will rally forth and redouble your efforts, is that when you hit that setback, when you hit that adversity, ask yourself, what can I do better next time? Success is a statistical event. Why am I Dr. Kimbrough? Because I'm smarter than you guys? No. I got a PhD because I got more college hours than you have. When you get the same number of college hours I have, you'll have a PhD too. You doubt that? See, I interviewed Marva Collins in Chicago, and I asked Marva, I said, Marva, if I put you under a microscope, what is the 1 or 2 things that I would find out over and over in your character? You know what she told me? She says, I learned 15 new vocabulary words a day. Now, I can take a high school dropout from inner city Oakland, and for 5 years, teach that individual 15 new vocabulary words a day. And after 5 years, they may not be Marva Collins, but I guarantee you they'll either be on somebody's college campus or in somebody's high school, either teaching English, literature, or reading whatever. Success is a statistical event. The average individual in our lifetime, or the average individual in society, gets 4 ideas a year, any one of which, if they had the guts, the courage, the fortitude to follow them through, would make that person financially independent. So why don't we do it? Well, a whole host of things. Low self-image. You know, we don't believe in ourselves. Lack of faith. I'm here to tell you that anybody, it's not a question of can you succeed, it's a question of will you succeed. And that's it in a nutshell. That's all success is. That's all I ever did. When I left school, I didn't want to become a top surgeon. I didn't want to become a president of a firm. I didn't want to go to the moon, fly to the moon like Mae Jemison. All I ever wanted to do was to position myself in a position where if there was anybody anybody in the United States, in the 48 contiguous states or throughout the country, anybody who wanted to know anything about blacks, success, wealth, achievement, or leadership, they had to call me. And that's all I ever did. That's all I ever did. It took me 6 years to write the book. 6 years to write the book. And I wouldn't be standing here today if it wasn't for my lovely wife, Pat. Pat, stand up. See, I don't mind telling you the truth. I mean, if it wasn't for her, I'm just telling you the way it is. If it wasn't for her, I would not be standing here. 6 years it took me to write the book. When I started interviewing these achievers, I guess I'd interviewed about 20 of them. And W. Clement Stone of the Napoleon Hill Foundation caught wind of what I was doing. Now, who is Napoleon Hill? Napoleon Hill is arguably the #1 success, motivational, inspirational writer that this country has ever produced. If you took Napoleon Hill and put him in a foot race with all the men and women who you see out on the circuit today, if you put him in a mile foot race, get them all, line them up, put him in a mile foot race with Napoleon Hill, by the time Napoleon Hill crossed the finish line, he would be so far out in front, if he turned over his shoulder, he couldn't even tell you who's in second place. Napoleon Hill was a white gentleman born in utter poverty in Virginia who carved out a very illustrious speaking and writing career for himself. He wrote 16 books. 6 of his books are still on the market today. His all-time 2 bestsellers, his first one was called Laws of Success, but in the 1930s he published Think and Grow Rich. At last count, that book has sold more than 16 million copies. More than 250,000 blacks have read the original Think and Grow Rich and use it as a springboard in their life. The last thing Napoleon Hill ever attempted to do in 1970 was to write a black version of Think and Grow Rich. He gets 100 pages into the manuscript and he dies of a stroke. He is 83 years old. Those 100 pages sat on the desk of W. Clement Stone for 16 years until I walked into his office. Now, who is W. Clement Stone? W. Clement Stone is the president of the Napoleon Hill Foundation. In the 1970s, he was the wealthiest individual in the world. He was #1 on the Forbes 400 richest list. And he caught wind of what I was doing. He called me up and he says, "Young man, when can you come to Chicago? I'd like to meet you." My wife and I flew to Chicago, met W. Clement Stone. And prior to that, I told Mr. Stone, I said, he asked me why I got involved in this project, why I was going around the country interviewing successful black achievers. And I said, Mr. Stone, I wanted to find the answers to 2 questions. Question number 1, why does one man or woman fail while another succeeds? And question number 2, why is one individual rich and wealthy while another is impoverished? And at that time, W. Clement Stone said to me, he says, well, based on what we see and hear, we want you to push your book aside and we want you to finish this book. And I said, what book? And that's when he placed in my hands the last 100 pages written by Napoleon Hill. And I looked at it, and I looked at Mr. Stone, and I said, I can't finish this book. He said, why not? I said, well, I want to finish my book. He said, put your book aside. And I said, second of all, I can't finish this book. And he says, why not now? And I said, well, I don't have any money. I said, I'll finish it under one condition. If you pay me, if you give me some type of financial inducement, if you underwrite me, then I'll finish the book. And then W. Clement Stone said something to me I'll never forget. He said, young man, if you really want to find out the answers to the question why one person fails and another succeeds, if you really want to find out the answer to the question why one person is rich and wealthy while another is impoverished, it is in this laboratory that you must find it. He said, no, I'm not going to pay you. And for 6 or 7 years, I crisscrossed the nation. I was hit with every type of financial situation, you name it, I was hit with it. Didn't lose one car, lost 2. Couldn't begin to tell you how many times my water, gas, electricity was cut off. So I just showed you I had a wife and 3 kids that I had to care for. See, the Bible says it came to pass, not it came to stay. So I think I'll just stop my little talk right here and open it up for Q&A and use that as a springboard. If anybody has any questions, we'll just
was so powerful. The Q&A is amazing. It's amazing. But before we jump into and start listening to the Q&A, I want to hear what comments, what you get from that. That was like the most power-packed 16 minutes ever. There was so much goodness in it. What did you get from it? Anybody want to make any comments, or do y'all want to tune back in to what he was saying?
I'm gonna come on, Kiara. You can hear me, because if I don't, I got some stuff wrote down. If I don't do it fast, so I ain't gonna understand my own writing.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, what I got out of that, he said what make, great successful people. First of all, I circled on that. For you can be great and successful in anything with your dream or your idea. What I've heard rappers and people with money do, they didn't do their research around the people that are around you. I didn't hear him say that. And the reason why it's so important, you don't have people that were very successful with their ideas and dreams and didn't have the right people around them, accountants and these people, the way they didn't research them and really check them out. And these people were stealing from them. They were stealing their money, they were stealing ideas, and came back and did all kind of crooked stuff. Now that's just what I got on just me just watching stuff and seeing where people fall, that they don't do the research. And he said why one fell and one succeeded. And it go back to what I was saying. The one that fell, he didn't do no research, and the one that succeeded, he did. And what I mean by research, when you got ideas and you got dreams of trying to make it, and you can make it, but the only thing, make sure the people that are around you, you can trust these people, because when money start getting too heavy, sometimes we get what they say, lost in the sauce, and we don't even see that people are taking from us until it's too late, till we are all the way broke. So I think being successful to me is appreciating the ideas that you have, and go ahead and follow through with them, but make sure you slow your roll and do research along the way of people that are around you, because you can't do none of this stuff by yourself, and you're going to need people know how to budget money. You're going to need all these workshops out here you talk about. All these people going to play a role, but evaluate those people that are around you. And that's where I'm at with that, because it was a very good slide. But one thing that I see where people fall, the flip side of that, they didn't research nobody they got. People just coming along, and everybody sound good or not good with you. I said one time in a study that everybody walking with you, Kiara, they're not with you. They just walking. They're not with you, but they walking with you. You get that? And that's all I got right now, but I'm letting you know it was a very good slide.
Yes. So I think that's so good. One of the things that he talked about in the very beginning was, he was like, if you want to be great, surround yourself with great people. And I see the articles where you have the person who maybe was in the NFL, or I just saw an article about like Master P and Little Romeo, and some of the financial troubles that Master P had with like his taxes and stuff. And I see these situations and it breaks my heart. And I'm always praying, like, Lord, like whenever I see somebody, I'm like, Lord, please let them have some good people in their life who help get them educated when it comes to, they made this money. Lord, please bless them with some people in their life who won't try to dissuade them. And many of you have probably seen it. So Byron, I'm actually glad you mentioned this, but there was this whole thing called FTX with the cryptocurrency. And there were all these like rich and famous people. And a lot of people were throwing their money in this thing just because, like, somebody who was a celebrity said it. They're not a financial expert. They were a celebrity, and they caused lots of people to lose. Like, I think it was like over $1 billion loss with all the different people, and it just disappears out of nowhere. And so, yeah, it is so important that we surround ourselves with great people, and take advice from people who are where we want to be. So that's really good. And I'm just going to throw out a little plug. I am doing a free Breakthrough 2023 budget boot camp on Saturday at 1 p.m. on Zoom. I'll put the link on the Facebook, and then I'll also drop the link in the chat here. But that's some good points. Does anybody else have any other comments on what you heard in the video with Dr. Dennis Kimbrough?
Yeah, I got two things. First of all, I got my sermon for Sunday, it came to pass not to stay. And so I got my sermon down already for Sunday. And the second thing is I want to that when he was talking, it made me think of my great granddaddy Papa. And so he was a AME preacher, and I just really had a lot of respect for Papa. He was born in 1904, and his daddy Sam was actually born a slave. His name was Harmon Mosley, but his daddy was Sam Mosley. And he was actually born a slave. But my great grandfather he grew up in Quitman, Georgia. And I guess by the time I got old enough, to go in, by the time I was born, he owned, and this was in the 60s, he owned, 100 acres of land in Quitman, Georgia, a black man, a preacher. And I just always respected him. And while this was playing, I was thinking to myself, I was like, you know what? I bet Papa probably didn't even graduate high school. But it seemed like he just knew stuff. And to know stuff meant he did something to put himself in a position to get information. And to own 100 acres of land, in southern Georgia, Quitman, Georgia, to raise a family and be able to feed his family, take care of his family off of that land. I know nobody gave him 100 acres of land. And so there were things that he had to do. But the one thing I always noticed about Papa was he knew stuff. And so even when I do ministry, he's one preacher that I always pattern myself behind, and not so much in trying to be this, expositor, this orator, but just how to do, how to serve. And I think it's smart, like he said, and so when he's kind of talking about literacy, like reading and things like that, I just look at it just getting information. He knows how to get information, knows where to get information from in order to be successful.
Amen. Amen.
Kiara, before you move, Reverend Rawls just hit a good point there, because I'm in that position right now. Sitting, getting information. Because you got to look at it, Kiara. You always will be like, all right with me for what you bring to the table, because it really is. It had not been for your workshops, I'd have been still scared trying to buy a house. You understand what I'm saying? You had the right person on here to encourage somebody like me to not give up, and there was a chance for you just as well if it was somebody with Class A credit. You understand? So this is where I'm at. I don't have all that what a lot of people have, but I'm in the right place tonight to get another nugget in my life that could be a life-changing situation. So I always try to keep myself in a place of learning. Always. Anytime I miss something, I'm mad because I missed an opportunity to learn something. And it's different from watching it the next day than to hear it right here off the press. It's a different feeling to me because I got it first. So I appreciate what's going on, and I thank you for all the avenues that you bring to the table.
My pleasure. Does anybody want to share any other comments before we hop back in and maybe listen a little bit more to the video? All right, so I'll play it a little bit more and then I'll pause it once we get some good stuff and then see if there's any other comments. So let me go ahead and hit share and let's get back to it.
Take off from there. Yeah.
Well, you can understand the passing of Reginald Lewis, who earlier this week was one of the richest black men, not the richest black men in America. You hear about Bill Gates, founder of Microsoft, and he certainly got as America's richest individual. He certainly ranks the top spot this year. But the passing of Reginald Lewis, certainly a milestone that not only Black History Month, certainly went out with no headlines. He was, best title was he was former CEO of BFS. No milestone about being the richest black man in America.
Well, They had a nice piece in USA Today. They had a couple of pieces in Wall Street Journal. I was interviewed by a writer from the Gannett Services about the same question. As a matter of fact, I was in Denver and I had a phone interview. Reg Lewis is one of the few individuals who I did not get a chance to interview. Very private man. I tried for more than 2 years to get through his lieutenants. The closest I got to Reg Lewis, I had a lengthy conversation with his director of communications, and I did have a nice conversation and an interview with a gentleman up in New York who helped Reg Lewis put together the deal. I just asked him the mechanics of the deal. Very private individual. It's a real-life tragedy that we didn't get to enjoy some of the fruits of what Reg Lewis did. But Reg Lewis was not the first one to put together a leverage buyout. That honor goes to Bruce Llewellyn. The first leverage buyout in the United States was by a black man, Bruce Llewellyn, in the 1970s with Fedco Foods. An interesting anecdote, I did get a chance to spend some time with Bruce Llewellyn, who was arguably one of the wealthier people in the United States. But here is a black man, Bruce Llewellyn, before I get more on Reg Lewis, who came within an eyelash of owning the New York Yankees. See, years ago when Fay Vincent ascended to the position of commissioner of baseball, it didn't take Fay Vincent any time to throw George Steinbrenner and the Yankees out of baseball. Steinbrenner's coming back in March. The day after Fay Vincent tells George Steinbrenner and the Yankees to pack his bags, Bruce Llewellyn calls his secretary into his office. Secretary takes down the following letter, takes the letter, puts it in a FedEx envelope. FedEx is the envelope to George Steinbrenner. George Steinbrenner gets the FedEx envelope the next day, pulls out the letter, and the letter reads, "Dear George, write any dollar figure you want in the enclosed check. I must own the Yankees." Y'all knew it. Dear George, write any dollar figure you want on the enclosed check. I must own the Yankees. Steinbrenner says, no, they're not for sale. But getting back to Reg Lewis, one thing Reg Lewis did do, he was a paragon for business excellence for us. Here's a guy, went to Virginia State. From Virginia State, he specifically went to Harvard to study under a law professor by the name of Lewis Loss. Lewis Loss is an expert in leverage buyouts, LBOs. And see, Reg Lewis had a plan. He went to Harvard to study under the best, and he was going to take what he had and use it. He was going to take the knowledge that he was going to gain from Harvard and put it in action. So, we have other capable leaders, particularly entrepreneurs. And it is up to us, I guess, writers like myself, or every chance that we can get to shine and let that light on these individuals where they can pass along this baton called success. See, you ask any track coach who has coached a relay race, the track coach will tell you that a relay race is either won or lost, and the swift interchange it takes to pass the baton. And that swift interchange it takes to pass the baton between runner and runner, that will make up the critical difference of the race. Now, Black America has many swift and capable runners. Lane number 1, we got Oprah Winfrey. In lane number 2, we got John Johnson. In lane number 3, we got Earl Graves. In lane number 4, we got Anesta Proco. Black men and women who have run the race of their lives, all right? Who have run the race of their lives. They come around the turn, they're coming down the straightaway, they're holding this baton called success and achievement, and we just have to make sure that there is another generation that is fit and focused in those lanes to take that baton. Hopefully, in the 50 years that Reg Lewis was here, we were able to do that.
I have a real stupid question.
Yeah, no question is stupid. Unless I ask my wife for money. Yeah, I asked my wife for money. I said, Pat, give me some money. She said, I gave you $1 last week. What you do? I know, can't take me anywhere. Go ahead.
But my question is, I like your book, you always say, think big.
That's right.
Think big.
That's right.
I really do. I think really big and crazy. I think, but then I don't know how to do it. I think I want to be famous.
Okay.
But then I always sit back and wonder, my dream is, like, I want to show all famous people. And
Yeah.
God has been opening that door for me. Like Gorbachev, Mandela, Jesse Jackson. I've met all of these people. But then I want to be famous. And I would like have to write a book about, I don't know. How do you even begin?
Well, it sounds like you're trying to find your area of excellence. And there's four keys that you can use to find your area of excellence. Number one, ask yourself these four critical questions in order to find your area of excellence. Number one, ask yourself, what is it that I love to do?
I love to drive.
Okay.
I really do. I love children.
What is it that I love to do? What do I have a passion for? What can I throw my whole heart and soul into? Yeah, question number two. That's question number two. Ask yourself, what would I do for free? What would I do without financial reward? What would I do without financial remuneration? Because when you're doing what you love to do and you would do it for free, your work is your play. And if your work is your play, you'll never work a day in your life. See, the two times I interviewed John Johnson, I noticed him at point blank range, and I couldn't tell when he was working and when he was playing. You see, it was totally symmetrical. I couldn't tell. Question number three, ask yourself, what comes easy to me but difficult to somebody else? What do I do so effortlessly and so flawlessly? As Oprah Winfrey says, it's like breathing. And we all have these areas and these zones. Question number four, ask yourself or ask your friends, your family, your neighbors, what do you see me as? What do you think I would be good at doing? You answer those four questions openly and honestly, you'll have identified your area of excellence. Now, here's the good news. The market pays superior rewards for superior performance. Any other questions?
How do you get to that superior performance? And you have the idea. You know what you want to do. You might know how to get there, you might not. How do you get that push, that drive? How do you go from one place to another blindly? Not necessarily not seeing, but I mean, just this is the way I have to go. Yeah. This is the way I have to go. I have to do it.
Well, I mean, first of all, you don't get involved in anything that you can't be excellent at it.
Right.
You don't get involved in anything that you can't be excellent at it. See, when you are excellent at what you are doing, you never have to worry about employment. You never have to worry about an income if you are excellent at what you're doing. If you are number one in your field, the market will seek you out. If you are number one. I mean, for 6 or 7 years, I crisscrossed this country and I couldn't find a job with a roadmap. I mean, I did anything. I mean, one year I lived in Atlanta. One year I couldn't find any work in Atlanta while I'm engaged in this project. The only job I could find is in Chicago. And for 1 year, I lived in Chicago completely away from my family. And every other Friday when my boss from the consulting firm gave me my check, I put it in the mail and sent it back to my family. But now you become excellent at what you're doing, people seek you out. I mean, I get hit up with scores of opportunity. Scores of opportunity. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, but how do you get into a position where people can see it?
Okay, I see what you're saying right now. It goes back to that age-old adage where practice makes perfect. Except that adage is wrong. Practice does not make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. If you're practicing anything but perfection, you're perfecting an error. So you set a goal. And when you take action on that goal, step back from that goal and ask yourself, how is my aim? How is my aim? If you set a goal to hit that bullseye and you throw the dart over here, you step back and you measure the difference. That's why I say in my book that your goals must be conceivable, goals must be believable, goals must be achievable, and last but not least, goals must be measurable, because what gets measured gets done. What gets measured gets done. And you should make sure that you keep your goals in front of you at all times. I mean, you're sitting here listening to me right now. If I was to break in any of your homes or your apartments, I'm going to ask you this question to throw it out. I'm just playing devil's advocate. Smile! Don't let me prick me, man. I didn't do that. I knew I shouldn't have come. You're here listening to me now, right? If I broke into your home or apartment, okay? And suppose I decided to shave in the same mirror that you put your makeup on every morning, would I see your goals? Yeah. If I reach for a glass of water in your icebox where you may keep your bacon and eggs and whatever, would I see your goals? If I took off my jacket in the same closet that you take off your blouse or whatever, would I see your goals? If I got tired and slept in your bed on the same side that you sleep on and rolled out the same side you roll out every morning, what would be the first thing that I would see? Would I see your goals? So what thou seest, that thou beest. And that's all I had. When times got difficult, I leaned on my dreams. When people slammed the door in my face, I would just think about my dreams over and over and over and over again. When they cut my water off or take my car and tell me, hey, this won't work and that won't work, hell, I would go down to the bookstore. I went down to B. Dalton's bookstore in Atlanta, Georgia, and asked for my book years before it was finished. I had a bad day, somebody kicked me in my mouth, and I would do that routinely. Go down to B. Dalton's bookstore and ask for my book. Go up to the desk, and I asked the manager, I said, do you have that book? It's about blacks and achievement, and she would say, who's the author? And I said, some guy named Kimbrough, and she would go to Books and Print and look it up and couldn't find it there. Then she would go to the microfiche and couldn't find it there. Then she would look on her computer, and a couple times they even called Ingram in Nashville, Tennessee, the distributor. She said, now who's the author? I said, some guy named Kimbrough. She said, are you sure about the title? I said, yeah, the book is #1. It's taking the country by storm. Everybody has it. You know what I'm saying? And I did that several times. 2-3 years before the book came out. And don't you know, when the book came out, I had a very, very, very successful book signing in that same bookstore. And it was a book, and the author's name is Kimbrough, and it is a bestseller, and everybody has it. So I don't care what others say. It's what you say. The most important conversation you'll ever have is the one you have with yourself. I can't control what the rest of these guys are going to do. I can't control that. The only thing I control is what goes on in here. And I can live my life in advance. That's all it is. All you are is a blank sheet of paper in the mind of the Creator. You come into this existence with 2 words. Our Creator gives us 2 words, I am, and leaves it up to you to fill in the blanks. Some folks say I am rich. Some folks say I'm healthy. Some folks say I'm prosperous. Some folks say, I am wonderful, whatever. And then you got a whole contingent of other folks say, hey, I am downtrodden. I am down and out. I am poor. I'm impoverished. You fill in the blanks. Our Creator doesn't know who's rich and who's poor. Our Creator doesn't know if John Johnson's worth $150 million and T. Boone Pickens and Ross Perot are billionaires and some poor black woman in Oakland is, trying to put an existence together. Our Creator doesn't know that. The only thing our Creator knows is the thoughts that you send out. And you can put anything that you want. See, that's what's meant in the Bible by Judgment Day. See, the Bible tells you Judgment Day. We've been taught Judgment Day. If we've been good, we go to some place called heaven. If we've been bad, the Creator pulls a trap door on us and we go to hell. That's not Judgment Day. Judgment Day is a day in which all your thoughts become things. You are a different Judgment Day to think different thoughts. Right now, this is my Judgment Day because I thought these different thoughts.
That question about how you get writing.
How I began?
Like if a person wants to write.
So I'm going to go ahead and pause it right there. Any comments, any thoughts on what you just heard? I would like to say that, something that's really sticking out to me is, you set your goal and you work for it, but you take some time to step back and assess and make adjustments. You don't just keep doing the same things. We are today, we are where we are, and we have what we have because of what we've been doing and what we've been thinking. And so if we want to change anything, we have to begin to do different things, change. We have to think differently. Our habits create our now. Our habits literally, it creates everything that's going on in our life. And so we have to change those habits if we want different results. And so, I just love how he focused on, failure. And I don't know if this is at the end of the video, if he already said it, but there was something I learned in a video where he was saying that people who succeed actually failed more than people who failed because they tried so much more. They're just persistent. They didn't give up. And in the first chapter of Think and Grow Rich, A Black Choice, it talks about persisting and how that is actually one of the greatest skills, like the attributes to somebody who is successful. It is because they persisted, because they did not give up, because they kept going. And so it wasn't necessarily that, they were just great, because success, it ebbs and flows. And sometimes it plateaus and, it's up and down. It's not just one straight shot, but the person who persists, is the one who overcame, is the one who won, who is the one who's successful. So does anybody else, like, did you take anything from it for yourself personally? Maybe something good that you could bring with you into 2023. And I also highly recommend, like, get the book. It is so good. I'm reading it now and it's blessing me. The book is like 20 something hours, like on audio version. So I couldn't really recap it, but I figured I would let him kind of just play his video so you all can hear kind of what he's thinking and how he's sharing things and a little bit about what the book is about. But
Kia,
Mhm.
Kia, like, what I got out of that little piece, man? What he's saying, man, you're not gonna get nothing. You're not gonna get more out of life than what you put in it. You know, I wrote down the 4, points he was making. You know, like, what's your passion? What you'll do for free? What comes easy to you? And what do you think, you good at? And what I really got is that we have to do things to stand out. When he was saying about cooking or whatever you do, it ought to stand out. You looking for success and you doing things. You can't do it and look over your shoulder to see who watching, for you taking a shortcut or what. Do your very best at whatever you do, and your work will stand out for itself. You may not see nobody walk in a bathroom after you cleaned it, or while you cleaning it, and say, oh man, you're doing a good job. But can you clean that thing the best of your knowledge without nobody there, and later on somebody tell you how good it was and you wasn't there to be like, somebody's always got to be watching you. There's no shortcuts. And it's like, you just can't do just enough to get by, to be successful. You got to be all in or all out. What he's saying, it's no in between. You got to be all in. You heard what he said when he went to Chicago. He was all in. And what right now, have you ever did something for somebody and they say, I appreciate that, huh? Here go a little something to put in your pocket. You say, no, you don't owe me nothing. I like doing that. You know what I'm saying? That's the attitude that you got to have. You got to have the attitude that I love this. This is my passion. I'm going all the way at this thing. No shortcuts. And that's the way we got to look at life to this day. Not that it's successful, but just life in general. Everything we do, we got to be all in and don't look for shortcuts in this thing called life. Do your very, because nothing, I wrote right here in my little notes and I'm going to get out of there and say, no good work go unseen. All little extra things that you do will be brought to your attention at a later date. That's all I got right now. Go ahead, Kiara. Doing good.
I love it. Anybody else? What did you get from it? There's been so much good stuff.
Yeah, this is Dr. Cole.
Yes.
I got so much out of it, but the few things stuck out with me. No, only time we fail is when we stop, when we give up. That's a failure. And the next thing was know your craft. Continue in your craft. What you like doing, continue at it. And the Bible tells us that your gift will make room for you.
Amen.
And those two things really stood out for me. And I just, there's so much and I can't remember everything, but those two things really stuck out with me. And, just don't give up. Don't give up. Continue. He had many doors closed in his face, but he continued to stay focused and surround himself with people that he admired, and God just continued to use him, and think eventually something will break through if you just don't give up. And you see now that he's very successful.
And Kiara, one more little piece. I know I forgot a little street saying, say, nothing comes to a failure but a trial, and nothing comes to a sleeper but a dreamer. You can't fail if you ain't tried. You just get up, brush your shoes off, and keep it moving. That's all I got. I thought I'd throw that in there.
I love it. This is so good. This is some good stuff for 2023. I may keep trying, be persistent. It's okay to fail. You just got to look back at it, say, okay, what adjustments do I need to make so I can get on track and hit that mark, and really, be willing be willing to fail. There was something he said about struggle and how it's actually like that struggle that is actually so good for us that it like builds something within us when our character that there's something that's developed through the struggle that can't really be developed anywhere. And so it's, you know, if anybody's watching and you're going through a struggle, you know, I want to, you know, you hear it and it might be frustrating, but I want to encourage you to count it all joy and to begin looking at it like, okay, God, what do you want me to get from this? What can I learn from this? And many times we're in a habit, right? And we're just so used to doing stuff. And the only way that we'll change is almost, there just has to be like some pain. And so sometimes it's that failure actually that gives us the pain we need to make the shift we need to make, that way we're not just steady in that same cycle of habits that's not really taking us where we want to go and where we need to go. Anybody else?
Yeah, Kiara, I noticed something else I had circled here until I had to identify it. That fourth question he asked, he say, what do you think I am good at? Who would ask that question? And I was thinking to myself, maybe your loved one, your spouse. And the reason I said spouse, because he mentioned his wife. He said if it wasn't for his wife, he wouldn't be in the shape he had. Like, ask my wife, you know, you live with me, you've been with me. What? This is the encouraging part. What do you think I'm good at? Well, you're good at talking, or you're good at this. And that's the encouraging piece, to work together to make all this stuff work. And it's just like, we'll switch around to the church. A lot of times we think that we are good at something that we're really not, and we'll try things. But usually time, I'll just say, I thank God for Reverend Rose to be able to identify things that he may think that he evaluates and watch you and see what you do that you may good at. And he might say, why don't you try this? I see you do this or that. Let's give that a try. Let's see how you work out there. And then you might be able to pick up that way. I just use that arena because what my point I'm trying to get, I can't hardly explain it. It's about somebody identifying where they think that you're good at what you do. Because sometimes you might think you're good at something and somebody else might see something a little better than what you even see in your own self. You might say, no, I think that might be that easy route, but that the one that you kind of scuffle with, that's what you probably good at, but you just scared to, you know, to pursue it. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay, that's it. That's what I got.
Man, that's so good. You touched on a good point about that fear. You know, we got to remember fear, false evidence appearing real, false experiences appearing real. And you know, today, you know, I made some calls. So my business is a business where, you know, you make phone calls, you set appointments, you're prospecting, like talking to people and getting the word out. And a lot of businesses are like that in some ways. And for me, you know, I remember when it came to picking up the phone, it was almost like the phone felt like it was 50 pounds. Like I literally would wrestle with picking it up to even talk to somebody. Like, oh my God, I don't want to make these calls. I'd rather just like read a book or write a book, or, you know, I can create a whole system, like, you know, and we have to be so careful that as we go into 2023 that we don't get caught up in busy work, but we actually do things that are, productive. And so, you know, I think it's so important that we find our groove. And you know, like he said, you know, a lot of people, they want to see it right before they see it, like, but he was saying you got to get your mind right here. And for me, what I've noticed is I get into this groove and then phone calls become easy. And then I'm like, oh man, I've been making calls for like an hour and a half. I need to go ahead and stop because I'm actually going past my time, my schedule, and my family, my kids are kind of wanting to know what's going on. But I say all this to say is that we gotta talk good to ourselves. It is so important. What are we saying to ourselves? Are we saying, oh, I can't do this? Oh, I don't know, like all these negative words? Or are we like, you know, like that, like one of my favorite songs, sometimes you got to encourage yourself. Sometimes you got to speak victory during the test, you know, like you have to speak life. And that's what the book is all about. Think and grow rich. So literally it all begins in our mind. And when we, when you see someone who has done something exceptional, do you think, oh, I could never do that? Well, then that's a problem in itself right there, because you are all worthy. You are all created amazing, God, like you are created in the image of God. And Oprah is not more special. Bill Gates is not more special. Like, LeBron is not more special. God has, each and every one of us is created in the image of God. Each and every one of us has gifts and has can do something special in his life. So when we think about Martin Luther King, or we think about a Nelson Mandela, or we think about people who've done exceptional things, I think we have to remember that I think they did exceptional things because they thought exceptionally. They dreamed big. They had exceptional desires. And so because they thought that, they grew in that thing that they thought. And so life and death is in the power of the tongue. But I feel like I'm rambling. Does anybody else want to make any more comments? We are about 4 minutes to the close. Does anybody want to make any more comments before I just make a last reminder, announcement, and a reminder of the name of the book and the author?
Well, I'll just say this. You hit me when you say power of life of the tongue. We went through that last night, got a little taste of that. But, I look at this. I wrote here, the last little comment I got, I say, we can be our own worst enemy. That's all I'm going to say. We can be that. We before we walk in a room, we are worse than everybody's rooting for us, and we went in there with a head full of doubt. We could be the ones that can kind of like hinder our own self. So, when you said life in the power of the tongue, that's it in our thought pattern. You know what I'm saying? We sometimes we beat ourselves up, and the world is rooting for us, and we already came in with a negativity. So I think we need to just keep it positive. Follow your dreams and follow your goals. Well, good presentation tonight. Yeah, Sister Rawls.
Wow.
I mean, oh.
You just left us off with some golden nuggets. Like, that is so powerful what you just said. So powerful. Sometimes we get frustrated and we look around and we think that other people are the enemy, or this person, they did this and that. But Byron said it perfectly. The biggest enemy we face is ourselves. And so if we can tame our tongue, if we can have control over our mind, if we can get ourselves in a position where we're a slave to righteousness and not a slave to sin, then we'll bear those fruits. So the question becomes, I'm going to just leave with some tangible nuggets for like, what can you do to really apply, some of the things we talked about. There's a scripture in the Bible that talks about how you have to renew your mind daily. Renew your mind daily. So it talks about think and grow rich. Well, how can I think this way unless I renew my mind daily? So something that you can be very intentional about in 2023 is that you don't let a day go by without reading. Should be reading every day. Reading the Bible, spending some time with God, just meditating on his word, even if it's just a verse, just really meditating and chewing on the wisdom of God through the Bible. And then the other thing that you can do is you can continue to read and develop yourself. So one thing I do is I read almost kind of like eating. So y'all, you ever have like a craving, like, ooh, man, I really want like some buffalo sauce or some ranch, like you kind of craving that. Or, ooh, I really want some ice cream. You craving something sweet. So I do the same thing with reading. I'm like, ooh, you know what? I noticed that I am struggling a bit in this area of my life. So I'm going to actually go and like read on that some. I'm going to be a leader. I'm going to read in that area. I'm going to, you know what? I noticed that I'm not where I want to be financially. I have these goals. I'm going to read about finances. I'm going to develop. I'm going to just spend some time reading in that area. Oh, I really want to be successful. I'm going to read about success. And so we can transform our minds by renewing our minds. We can read, I listen to audiobooks, YouTube videos. And sometimes this is what success looks like. you're working, but you don't see any improvements. Then all of a sudden it just takes off. So I just want to encourage you that just keep on working. You might not see it yet, but inch by inch, life is a cinch. Yard by yard, life is hard. All we can do is focus on each day, just doing our best, being the best person that we can. And I'm going to close this out. I'm doing a budget boot camp. And the reason why I'm doing this budget boot camp is because me and my husband went through this budget boot camp, and I thought I knew how to budget. But after me and my husband went to the budget boot camp, it showed a whole new level of budgeting. I'm so excited. I got my budget mapped out for January already. For the budget boot camp, I will be teaching about how to do a budget the very old-fashioned way, on paper with like one of those desktop calendars, and literally helping people to, get organized and take control of their money day by day, get in position where they begin to have that 3 to 6 month emergency fund, understand the foundations of building a financial house, and then just really learn. I hear it often, and I'm guilty of it, where it's like, man, I made that much. Where did it go? Has anybody ever had that happen, where you look and you're like, all this money came in the account, where did it go? Like, Lord Jesus, like, oh my gosh. And it can get really out of hand. And it can just, like, for me, one of my areas was food. And it's just like, I didn't really run through all the food in the fridge, but yet I'm going to the grocery store again and not being really intentional with how am I spending my money, how am I budgeting it. So that budget boot camp, I put it in the chat. I put it on the Facebook. It's completely free. There's nothing to be sold from it. It's just literally me just sharing the gratitude from my heart that somebody took the time to teach me this method. And then me and my husband are on a happy page and budgeting together. And I'm hoping I can help some other couples and even some singles to get on a happy page with their finances, to where they can look back month by month. They can know what happened to their money. They could be on track of their stuff. So I love you all. I pray that this meeting was encouraging and helpful. If you don't have the book, I highly recommend go get you Think and Grow Rich, A Black Choice by Dennis Kimbrough. It is so empowering to hear about, and it's all about Black success. It's so empowering. So, and then also check out GBGville, and you can click on ministries and join the financial wellness ministry right from the church site. And there's a place in there where you can chat and share resources and ask questions and just connect with our church community. And let's go think and grow rich in 2023 and break free from everything like that we don't want in our lives, and break into all the good stuff that we want in our lives and do well financially.
Sierra, before you go, I got one more little piece. It was a little rhyme used to be where the little train say, I think I can. Going into the new year, we'll change the lyrics to I know I can. I know I can. The rest, I know I can. And we'll get it. That's all I got, Kara. Go on the close side. That's
Amen.
it. That's all I got. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Right.
All right. Good job.
All right. Want to thank everybody for joining. Hope everybody got something out of it. And one word that he said that I want to leave us with is we can't control if we get knocked down, but we can control if we get up. So don't major in the minor.
Amen.
That's
Have
all
a great
right.
one. Have a great one.
That's it. That's it, Ro. You put the icing on the cake on that one. Yes, sir.